Hey, did you know in 1987 someone figured out how to take over live television and use it to air 90 seconds of pure chaos? It happened in Chicago. Not once, but twice. A masked figure dressed as a character called Max Headroom interrupted the evening news. Then, he came back during Doctor Who with distorted audio and bizarre, nonsensical commentary. The station scrambled, the FCC investigated, but the hijacker was never identified. This is the story of the Max Headroom broadcast hijacking. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Hey Did You Know, where we dig up the weird, the forgotten, and the downright strange corners of America. I want to thank everybody who was here that is watching on YouTube, and those who are listening, thank you for listening as well. Thank you all for your support. The views and the comments on the 2 YouTube videos have been amazing. Thank you for that. It really means a lot to me. And for those who have commented about the music, I am working on it. And I'm just trying to get my flow here on YouTube just to figure everything out. So please continue to bear with me, and I hope you do continue to support. And I do just have one quick reminder, as I say every episode, make sure you like and subscribe. Hit the bell on YouTube so that you get a notification. You don't want to miss any of the episodes that we have coming out. We drop new episodes every other Wednesday on the audio version and every other Thursday on YouTube. And don't forget to leave a comment with your thoughts, because I love hearing what you think. And it might get featured on another episode. But for right now, let's dive in and rewind back to 1987. Before we talk about the hijacking, let me tell you the story of Max Headroom. Because if you weren't around in the mid-1980s, like I wasn't, that name might not mean much to you. Max Headroom wasn't a real person. He was a fictional computer-generated television host created in 1984 by British writers George Stone, Annabel Jankel, and Rocky Morton. To introduce the character and to give him a backstory, he first appeared in a British television movie called Max Headroom 20 Minutes into the Future. And 2 days later, the Max Headroom show premiered, which was a television show where he introduces music videos, comments on various topics, and eventually interviews guests before a live studio audience. Max was advertised as being computer generated, and at the time, many genuinely believed that was true. In reality, the character was portrayed by actor Matt Frewer, who wore extensive prosthetic makeup, contact lenses, and wore a plastic molded suit. He performed in front of a blue screen, while harsh lighting, editing tricks, and deliberate movements enhanced the illusion that he was actually CGI created. Max's personality, it was meant to be satirical exaggeration of the worst tendencies of American television hosts in the 1980s, who wanted to appeal to the youth culture, but they weren't actually a part of it. People like Casey Kasem, Dick Clark, and Merv Griffin. The Max Headroom show ran for 3 seasons. The second and third season also aired in the United States on Cinemax. Between those 2 seasons, a Christmas special was released in 1986, and it was written by George R.R. Martin, who would later go on to become famous for a little book series called A Song of Fire and Ice. Maybe you've heard of it. Although the original British series ended after its 3rd season, Max Headroom had already become a breakout star. In the United States, he became the face of Coca-Cola's new Coke campaign, appearing in the series of high-profile commercials with the catchphrase,
"Catch the wave, Coke!"
ABC picked up the character for an American series simply titled Max Headroom, and it was a satirical cyberpunk science fiction drama that ran for 2 seasons from 1987 to 1988. So basically what I'm trying to get at here is, between 1985 and 1988, Max was everywhere. He embodied that very 1980s obsession with technology, digital culture, artificial personalities, and the futuristic idea that media itself was becoming computerized. So now that you know who he was, a witty, glitchy TV host who criticized society and media, let's talk about the night that someone took his face and broke into live television to deliver a message that was as bizarre as it was disturbing. If you were sitting at home on your couch in 1987, flipping through TV channels, you find a little bit of everything. Maybe the national broadcast of the rescue of baby Jessica, or President Reagan demanding that Gorbachev tear down this wall. But if it was November 22nd, and you lived in Chicago, you were probably tuned in to the local news, catching up on the Bears' 30-10 victory over their longtime rival, the Detroit Lions. Little did anybody know, that night they were about to see and hear something completely unusual. The first intrusion happened around 9:14 p.m. during the sports segment of WGN-TV's 9 o'clock news. Without warning, viewers' screens went suddenly black for about 15 seconds, and then an image appeared. A person wearing a Headroom mask and sunglasses suddenly filled the screen. The masked figure rocked back and forth erratically in front of a corrugated metal panel that slowly rotated behind him, which was meant to mimic the background seen in the real Max Headroom broadcasts. The signal itself looked rough and unstable, accompanied by a harsh buzzing sound and garbled static. The entire intrusion lasted roughly 30 seconds before engineers at WGN managed to regain control by switching the station to a backup transmitter, cutting off the pirate signal. When the broadcast returned to normal, WGN sports anchor Dan Roan looked just as confused as everyone watching at home. He addressed the interruption live on air, saying,
"Well, if you're wondering what's happened, so am I. Actually, the computer that we have running our news from time to time took off and went wild," before
calmly restarting his report on the Chicago Bears' victory. For viewers at home, it seemed like nothing more than a strange technical glitch. But what no one realized at the time was that the night's broadcast hijacking wasn't over yet. For a moment, it seemed like the strange interruption on WGN really may have just been a bizarre technical glitch. But about 2 hours later, around 11:20 p.m., it happened again. This time, the signal of Chicago's PBS station WTTW was interrupted during the airing of the first part of the Doctor Who serial, Horror of Fang Rock. It appeared to be the same Max Headroom impersonator as before, but this time, viewers could actually hear him, his voice coming through in warped and distorted audio. And for the first minute or so, the masked figure launched into a rapid stream of brief, seemingly unrelated comments, pop culture references, and strange exclamations. At one point, he mentioned nerds, and then referenced WGN sportscaster Chuck Swirsky as a frickin' liberal. He then held up a can of Pepsi while referencing the Max Headroom Coca-Cola slogan, "Catch the Wave." And after a moment of brief and random moaning noises, the figure began singing the phrase, "Your love is fading," before humming part of the theme song to the 1959 animated series, Clutch Cargo. He then added another strange line, quote, "I see the X," a reference to the final episode of Clutch Cargo. After a few more bizarre seconds and bizarre behavior, the video suddenly cut again. This time, the masked figure appeared mostly off-screen with his partially exposed backside visible. On the right side of the screen, another person entered and appeared to be wearing a mask and a French maid's costume. The image then faded into brief static, and just like that, viewers were returned to Doctor Who. The total time of interruption was about 90 seconds, and technicians at WTTW were unable to stop the signal takeover because at that hour of night, there were no engineers on duty at the station's transmitter. And because of that, the station had no immediate way to override the hijacked signal. According to station spokesman Anders Jochum, technicians monitoring the broadcast from WTTW headquarters attempted to take corrective measures, but ultimately they couldn't stop the intrusion. Air director Paul Rizzo later recalled that as the content got weirder, we got increasingly stressed about our inability to do anything about it. The pirate broadcast ultimately ended on its own when the hijackers decided to just stop transmitting. So how exactly did somebody pull something like this off? Investigators determined that the broadcast intrusion was likely carried out by transmitting a more powerful microwave signal to the station's broadcast towers than the stations themselves were actually sending. When this happens, something called a capture effect can occur, basically where the stronger signal essentially overrides the weaker one, allowing the hijacker's video feed to replace the legitimate broadcast. The pirate signal also would have needed to originate somewhere in a clear line of sight to the broadcast towers of both stations, towers that were both located in Chicago's tallest buildings at the time. Experts have said that the stunt would have required significant technical knowledge and powerful transmitting equipment. Pulling something like this off in 1987 was already incredibly difficult, but after American television stations switched from analog to digital broadcasting in 2009, a hijacking like this became virtually impossible to replicate. To this day, no one has ever claimed responsibility for the hijacking. Over the years, speculations about the identity of the masked Max and his accomplices has produced several theories. Some believe the stunt may have been an inside job carried out by a disgruntled former employee of WGN-TV, while others suspect that it may have been the work of the members of Chicago's underground hacker community. But despite an official investigation in the immediate aftermath of the incident, along with decades of unofficial inquiries, speculations, and online discussion, the identities and the motives of the hackers still remains unknown. Shortly after the intrusion, officials of the FCC warned that those responsible could face serious consequences, including fines of up to $100,000 and as much as 1 year in prison. However, the 5-year statute of limitations on the crime expired in 1992, which means that even today, if the people who were responsible were to come to face, well, they wouldn't face any criminal charges. And so nearly 4 decades later, the Max Headroom broadcast hijacking still remains one of the strangest and most famous unsolved incidents in television history. And that, my friends, is the Max Headroom signal hijacking story. Do you think it was an inside job? Or maybe just someone who was bored and knew exactly how television signals worked? Let me know in the comments. I really want to know what you guys think about this one. But for right now, thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. And don't forget to follow, because you're not going to want to miss the next one. Because next time, we're traveling back to 1892 to a small town in Rhode Island where fear, sickness, and superstition led a community to believe that a real vampire was living among them. The story of Mercy Brown and the last American vampire panic. Until next time, thanks for listening.